Hi, this is Pamela Landers. I am an expert master hand analyst, and on this video, we're talking about life lesson. If you've seen the other two videos, you've heard me talk about the fact that the fingerprints are formed by 16 weeks after conception, and they never change. The life lesson resides in the fingerprints. The fingerprints are a soul contract, a soul agreement. The fingerprints determine a choice that's been made by your soul about why you're here in this lifetime. The life lesson is the way through. The life lesson is, to me, the most important information that you can have about your fingerprints, because it ultimately is the thing that makes your life the easiest. Honest to God, it is so much easier when you know what your life lesson is and you understand the master path of your life lesson. I'm going to show you the fingerprint patterns again because this is a very important part of understanding. When we were looking at life purpose, we were looking at where are the highest ranked fingerprints, the one with the most lines. To determine life lesson, we're looking at where are the fewest lines in a fingerprint pattern. For example, if you had whorls on some fingers and arches on other fingers, arches would be the lowest ranked fingerprints because they have the fewest number of lines. That would be your life lesson fingers. If you don't have arches, a lot of people don't have arches and tented arches. They're the least common fingerprints that show up. The most common are whorls and loops. The loops is the most common. So maybe you have a whole bunch of loops and a tented arch on one finger. That would mean it was your life lesson. Or you had 4 fingers that had arches. Or you have loops and whorls. You have whorls on 5 fingers and loops on 5 fingers. The loops would be the life lesson because they have fewer lines than the whorls do. This is what, as a hand analyst, I can determine, and other hand analysts, of course, can determine which fingerprints are the lowest and highest ranked. The life lesson being the way through is also so important. And I'll give you an example of my life lesson in a minute. The other thing I want to say about life lesson is it's also the purpose of your life. It's not your life purpose based on the fingerprint, but the purpose of your life is to focus on your life lesson, to give it its due, to give it embraced energy, to love it, to fall in love with your life lesson so that you can have an easier life. My life lesson is my right ring finger. I only have one. I feel very fortunate. I only have one finger that has life lesson marked on it. My right ring finger is my life lesson. As a life lesson, I'm going to be on the student path conversation. Every finger has master path and student path. There's a full spectrum on every single finger. The emphasis of the fingerprint tells me where to put more focus. For example, all the rest of my fingerprints are loops. I'm putting an extra emphasis on my life lesson because it is my lowest ranked fingerprint. I need to be paying attention to when I'm on the student path and how to move to the master path, which means I need to have language for both the master path and the student path. I need to understand what the student path feels like so that I can identify it and say, I don't want to be in this energy. I want to move to the master path in this particular moment, in this particular way. That's the value of knowing your life lesson, is how to move from the student path to the master path, and how, again, to make your life easier and you'll just feel happier and more soulfully satisfied. My right ring finger, Apollo finger, one I'm holding up here, as a life lesson on the student path when I'm in the sucky side of it is I self-reject and self-criticize. I can be very mean to myself. I have been. I'm not like that now in the way that I used to be. I have done so much work because I've understood this. I've known that my life lesson required me to learn how to not be mean to myself, how to pay attention to my mind chatter so that I am not making harsh comments in my head about myself. I've learned how to recognize when I'm doing that and how to change the conversation. That's what works for me. Pay attention. Am I being mean to myself right now? Am I saying something self-critical? Am I being self-rejecting in some way? I feel yucky. What's going on? How am I talking to myself? Okay, what do I want to do about that? One of my recommendations is to, instead of trying to get necessarily to the master path of that conversation, is to choose a topic where I can feel good. So for example, I do a lot of art. You can see that I have mandalas behind me here. I paint. When I did the one in the middle, oh, it's in the middle of my wall, but the one that's over here on the right with the darker frame, the first version of that had different colors on it. The background was the same, but some of the internal pieces had different colors. And I remember just being really, this was in 2014 when I did this, being hard on myself about the patterns of choices that I was making for the colors. And it's like, wait a minute, I don't have to be mean to myself about that. I can just get different paint colors out and paint them in a way that makes me feel better about what I want to look at. I'm really happy that I learned how, with my artistic expression, because the hollow finger is all about being creatively expressive. On the master path, it is about being visible with my art. It is about having permission to be, quote, on some kind of stage. Doesn't necessarily mean I have to be on a stage in front of 1,000 people, although it could. It has to do with how I express myself creatively. So the self-expression meanness gets in the way. If I'm being self-critical or I'm being self-rejecting or I'm being mean to myself in some way about my artistic expression, I'm not going to want to share it with anybody. It's not going to get visible anywhere. People who are in classes with me see my art all the time, and I make cards that I mail to my clients, do all kinds of artistic endeavors that do get some visibility. I was in an art show a few months ago because I had an opportunity to do that. I'm just saying that the mind chatter with Right Apollo is the piece that makes the biggest difference between being on the student path and master. When I'm being self-critical and self-rejecting, I'm not nice to myself. And that can get projected onto every other relationship, by the way. When the parts of you where you're being mean to yourself, you can project that stuff onto other people. Common psychology, I took psychology in college, common psychology focus is what I don't like about myself, I project onto somebody else and then don't like them for that. So ultimately, learning how to be kind to yourself is going to improve your relationships. This is important, to be conscious of what it is that your life lesson is about. We were talking in the video on Jupiter for life purpose, and the student path of Jupiter could be a life lesson. I see that as a common life lesson as well as a common life purpose. The student path of Jupiter, when you're in your life lesson energy, means you feel powerless. You give your power away to other people. You get into power struggles. You feel overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. So you get completely stopped dead in your tracks. Every finger has a meaning. Jupiter, as we were talking about, is about power, and Apollo is about creative expression. The Saturn finger has to do with resource management and being responsible, and all kinds of resources: money, information, time, knowledge, wisdom, people, all of that. And the Mercury finger has to do with communication, and the thumb has to do with how you impose your will in the world and how you manifest and make things happen. Each finger has a different meaning, and they're different on the left hand than the right hand, so you have 10 different options. Depending on how many life lessons you have will depend on where your focus wants to be. I find that the most important part of the life lesson is, first of all, permission to embrace it and love it, as opposed to making it something you want to push away and deny, or pretend you don't have it, which is what I've seen some people do, or think that there's something really wrong with you because you have a life lesson. Everybody has them. Everybody has them. Why would you not want to embrace this? Why would you not want to make this something that you fall in love with? Now, I've learned how to fall in love with the mental conversations that I have with myself about being mean to myself. I've learned to embrace, oh, I'm doing that again. Okay, I have a choice. I can get onto a different topic. So as I was talking earlier about my art, if I'm being mean to myself about what colors I've chosen in a particular piece of art, I could get focused, as opposed to if I don't feel like choosing another color is imminent in the moment and I want to be on the master path of my Apollo energy, I can go to a different topic where I feel good. I could start focusing on the books that I've written and feeling in the moment, wow, I've written some amazing books on hand analysis. And isn't that amazing that people have access to this fabulous detailed conversation that I get into, the depth of conversation that I get into about hand markings. It's not available anyplace else. I'm the only one who's written this kind of depth on the hand markings that I've written on. So I'm saying I can change my attitude. I can change my mental mind chatter. I'm totally in control of what I'm thinking. That's very important for an Apollo life lesson. It's important for all the lessons, by the way, how you're thinking and how you're focusing your energy in any particular moment can be changed, but understanding the behaviors and the choices on the student path and the behaviors and choices on the master path is what gives you the freedom to make a choice to choose to be in your life lesson, but not reject it and criticize it and make yourself wrong for having a life lesson. But how can I shift this energy? How can I move to the master path right now and make my life look better? I encourage you, again, to be willing to take the risk, to discover and have your hands decoded so that you can live a life that you're designed to live and you can be true to your design. You can have permission to embrace your life lesson and have it be something you want to pay attention to and honor and cherish. Just like you would cherish a loved one, you can cherish your life lesson.